For nearly 2 decades, our solutions are helping companies around the world maintain maximum efficiency. We supported different of industries by providing them with mobile applications that increase efficiency in the warehouse and on the shop floor. In the mining industry and construction side, in maintenance and with field services, in energy industry. We support worldwide logistics and distribution. Among our customers are companies that are crucial to national economies. We help them build a stable future in uncertain times by providing them with flexible solutions that respond to ever-changing conditions and customer needs. Since 2005 to this day, we're operating with 16 offices in 10 countries with more than 220 customers worldwide. Growing customer satisfaction has proven that we are a trustworthy company that can deliver and help sustain their solutions, no matter in which country our customer are located.
I will now give the word to our CEO, Johan Melander. Please, Johan, share your presentation with us.
Thank you, Jenny. Good morning, everyone. My name is Johan Melander. I'm the CEO and the founder of Novacura. And I'll take you through the development of the ERP in the future, is my thinking. So I'll try to get some order in place, and then I am really looking forward to Wukash's wrap-up session when he's talking about cows. So let's start with some order, and then we gradually move over to the chaotic part of the journey today. Let's see if I can share my screen now.
Yes, Johan. Perfect.
Excellent. So I saw a lot of countries out there. Maybe I should say, no, I shouldn't speak different languages. I've been told do not do it, but I can say dzień dobry at least for the Polish people. I think that's polite. Okay, fantastic. The future of ERP, predictions, risks, and positioning. How do we position ourselves in this future? Let's see, can I move this thing? No, oh, yeah, I could as well. That's good. So first of all, I'd like to start off with an independent voice. It's not very common that when you hear an independent voice. It seems like a lot of people are kind of in the ecosystem in one or another place, but I've been able to identify a person which I believe is sort of independent. And then it's kind of our observation in relation to this independent voice, and finally how we try to position ourselves. But let's start off with the independent voice, talking about the future and where we're at now and where we're heading with ERPs. So there is a person called Eric Kimberling. He is with Third Stage Consulting. He does a lot of YouTube recordings on the internet. You'll easily find him on YouTube. And I think he presents a lot of interesting material. So I will give you kind of a brief summary of one of his sessions, which is the truth about SAP S/4HANA, basically, which I find interesting. So what Eric is talking about is really that SAP is working together with the ecosystem, and what the ecosystem being, of course, the big system integrators, the ERP user groups, the industry analysts, as well as the independent consultants. And all of the entire industry is conveying one message. It is SAP first. It means that you shouldn't have any other system than SAP. All processes, all industries, in all countries, it works fine in SAP. The second message is use best practice. Best practice meaning run the processes as they are defined in SAP, the way it was designed by the vendor. And if you're lucky, of course, that's a good advice. Sometimes it's not such a good advice. It depends on what processes that exist in the ERP system. Now, SAP did a huge technology shift from EECR3 to S4HANA. They actually did it like 2016, 17, 18. And they've been pushing the user community ever since to upgrade to S4HANA and the cloud environment. Initially, they communicated a deadline of 2018-19 when they started pushing. The last deadline is 2025. That's when all customers must be on S4HANA. And the question is, will it happen now or not? It's also a message of working agile and get it done fast. Start with SAP Core, start with financials. And I guess start with financials, the core. SAP is such an integrated system, it's very difficult to just start with financials. It's like a big spaghetti. So when you start working on the general ledger, of course, you get into purchasing and you get into sales and you get into manufacturing. So it's very difficult to just implement the core, meaning financial part of the system. Now, for some peculiar reasons, all of them are conveying that all projects, especially new implementation projects, maybe also upgrade projects, takes 3 years as a rule. Maybe even without a second thought or any further analysis. Start, get it done fast, work agile. So wherever the customer turns, they get exactly the same message from the system integrators, from the ERP user groups, from the analyst, from the independent consultant, and the vendor itself. The message is exactly the same. And of course, the executive team, the owners of the customer, find this reasonable. 3 years, we can do it. It sounds okay, and let's use best practice. We'll use SAP. They support all of our processes. So a project is eventually being launched and tagging along fine initially. The problem is just that there is also a reality, which is hitting the project team responsible for delivering on time within the 3 years. And of course, there is also a second challenge. Since SAP is moving from one technology to another, there is a skills gap in the community, and it's spread thin. The S4HANA knowledge is not really well known. There is also a lack of history. I mean, some of these customer companies have existed 50, 60, 70, 80 years. So they have baked processes and baked procedures. And there's a lack of history from the vendor side in terms of how to tackle the existing processes. There sometimes could be a lack of industry knowledge as well. And it's a big change for the customer. So pretty soon the project team they get questioned, of course. And they in their turn, they start talking about who is accountable. We need something that is tailored for us. We need a way to fill the gaps. SAP do not support all of our processes. How do we handle this process? There is also an interest in finding a program oversight, meaning where are we at? What is the degree of completeness in the project, and how much is left to give some predictability to the executive teams? I find this very interesting, what Eric is presenting. And we ask ourselves in our company, is it true? I guess is the first question. The second question being, is this also applicable to other ERP vendors and ecosystems of vendors? And a third question, I think, from us is, where do we position ourselves in this? Where are our core values? Where would we like to reside? Sort of on the red side, on the blue side, or can we be in the middle? Those are just some thoughts from a CEO, kind of thinking out loud. So does all ERP vendors follow the same path? Are they all on the same track? Or are some of them different? So let's look at some of our observations. I think that we can see a pattern in the ERP vendor community, that all of them are tagging along from on-prem single tenant to multi-tenant cloud. And on that journey, of course, they have different hybrid solutions, sort of, but they're all on the same journey. Note that the vendors are not listed in any particular order here. It's just a symbolic picture, but they're all tagging along. And I guess when we look at them a bit deeper, we could see some of the vendors are a bit ahead, sort of. They actually do have a multi-tenant cloud offering, and they are sort of mature, whereas others are still struggling to get up to single tenant cloud. So there is variety in the ERP vendor community in terms of their level of maturity. And behind all of these vendors are, of course, all of the customers. And eventually, I think everyone is on the same journey. Now, you must also notice when we talk about cloud, cloud could also be a private cloud. I'm thinking especially in terms of the government and defense industry will most likely not end up in the Azure or those kind of clouds, but rather more private cloud or even country cloud environments. So I heard of an initiative where a defense company in Sweden, Saab, was thinking about launching a national cloud environment for everything that needs to be protected in Sweden. So probably that will happen as well. So don't think cloud just Amazon and Azure. It could be other players in the cloud in the future. Another observation is that the ERP vendors are moving away from their customers. A lot of those ERP vendors are owned by PE or VC companies, and they are really interested in making a growth in terms of a value growth for the owners. And therefore, they are focusing on recurring revenue, basically. And they're trying to give everything related to customer interaction, which is related to risk, to partner companies, into implementation partners. And we see this happening a lot. It's kind of interesting when you look at Jeeves, they took an interesting journey. They had implementation partners. They did not do any implementations themselves. And then they were purchased and acquired by what is called Battlefield or something, that PE company. They removed the implementation partner, but now a couple of years later, they are again moving back to this model. So this, of course, means that the customer is getting more challenging to work with the vendors. They get more rigid and less available, I think. That's observation one. Observation two is that ERP vendors are standardizing their ERP systems. And eventually, I guess what they are looking for, the end result is an evergreen multi-tenant cloud environment. It also means that it's much more difficult to make modifications or customizations. To some extent, you still can do it, like custom fields and custom objects, but when you go into more of business logic and more heavily customizations, it gets more tricky and a lot more expensive in these new cloud environments. Third observation is that the ERP vendors are implementing evergreen. So every once in a while, there are new versions being released. But the problem, I mean, this is fantastic. You get more and more benefits out of the box, which is really good. But it also means that on a regular basis, you need to review your processes and make sure that you are aligned with the functionality of the ERP system. It also means that sometimes you could be pushed upon changes that you didn't expect. I could give you a pretty good example. We actually built multi-project solution. We did that on IFS 7.5 in our company. way before IFS did it. And then when IFS released their version, of course, we got a conflict. We had to adjust. It could also be that some of the new features are not really, doesn't really suit you. I think you noticed changes in Outlook in the calendar lately, which has been quite painful. It's just UX, user interface, but still a bit of a hurdle. I know when I get into my Tesla in the morning, one morning, I couldn't even turn on the back window. I had to go all the way without being able to see in my rear window because I couldn't find it. The UX had changed so much. So we will see the same thing happening in the ERP system, and somehow there needs to be a process and mechanism in order to handle these changes in a quality assured way, so we don't surprise the business. Observation 4, it's going to be more hard to handle integration business logic with Cloud API. In the old way, you could write a lot of logic sort of in scripts and outside of the ERP system. Since the new stateless OData interface doesn't really allow this, somehow you need to tackle the business logic, and there is tons of business logic usually in these areas when we integrate. If I look at some of our customers, like I'm thinking of automotive industry, maybe a customer like Specma has customer schedules, supply schedules, and tons of logic written in those interfaces. So it's going to be quite challenging moving, and it's going to be a huge upgrade to get that logic in place, I think. So this is something to observe, I think. And all of it is kind of pushed from the ERP vendors right now, sort of. Some of the vendors are putting harder pressure on the customers, whereas others are just in the beginning, but still we see the pattern. At this moment, I think a lot of companies have other challenges like the Ukraine war, the energy crisis. We just got out of the coronavirus. We have huge difficulties with climate and as well as currency rates that are fluctuating. We have a subsidiary in Sri Lanka, and you can talk about the roller coaster. I think the Lanka rupee dipped like 60% overnight in March last year. It's huge movements. So maybe the timing is not perfect for you as a customer. I think it's important not to be rushed or pushed, but rather find your own pace to do this transition that you're up against. Business comes first, I think. IT is later. Now, our mission is that we want to give you equipment to handle this journey now, I guess in the near future, but also in the mid-range, but also in the long time horizon. So for that reason, we have tools and procedures and offerings that we can offer you now, but we're also thinking ahead, thinking of the future. What should we provide in the future when you get into this transition period? And I guess in the course of the day, I think Paul and Axel and everyone except Łukasz, who will talk about cows, will present this equipment. So how can we provide assistance should you choose to use us? Of course, you have multiple vendors and multiple system integrators and multiple tools, but I guess this is a sneak preview of our offering. First of all, we believe it makes sense that Flow act as a gap filler, because the ERP system is and have always been very rigid in terms of business processes. And I guess when you look at your real processes, they are slightly different and they are outside of the ERP system. There are things that is not supported and there are variants. So somehow all customers need to handle the gap. We believe that it makes sense to use a low-code systems to handle the gap. To basically put something soft on top of something hard, and thereby make it a smoother journey when eventually the ERP vendor start delivering the evergreen. It means that the ERP system stays intact, is not modified. If you turn this around, this picture, you could almost see the Gartner bimodal with a system of records and system of innovation. So it's sort of the same. It's just another way of presenting it. You could also see that the ERP systems on the left are also the ERP vendors. They get more and more rigid. It's more and more difficult to get a hold of them. You have to use ticket systems, you have to wait, and you have to buy customer success. You have to pay to play customer success, partner success. You have to use different techniques to get the assistance that you need. So probably there is as a gap filler element also in terms of choosing an implementation partner, not just a tool. So we have Flow 6 running today with 150,000 users. We have invested 30,000 hours, development hours, in a new project called Flow Connect. So Paul will start talking about the Flow Connect product, and we'll get some sneak previews. The Flow Connect is mainly aimed as you move up to the new evergreen environment. Flow 6 will remain to support you, but once you want to choose to move on the upgrade path, we will provide you with Flow Connect. So it's going to be cloud to cloud, basically. We have invested 30,000 hours and will continue to invest. I think right now we have, what should we guess, somewhere between 30 and 40 people working full-time on this project. So tons of innovation goes into that project. We also have launched a dedicated integration team aiming at trying to support you to handle your integration needs in the future. And the thinking is that it's kind of twofold. It's, of course, an integration framework built on Flow. And on top of that, there's also going to be integration apps, which will be available in the marketplace. So we're looking forward to see what comes out of this new integration team, what they can deliver in the course of the year. We invest in a marketplace. We have a marketplace right now. We will continue to invest in the marketplace. So you could think of the marketplace as a web shop. Our thinking is to open it up for the entire ecosystem, meaning customers, partners, Novacura, and anyone who would like to publish something in the marketplace, it should be available. It could be available under subscription. It could be available as a freeware, something that you'd like to share with the community. It could also be apps, both, of course, mobile apps as well as integration apps that you can buy. And the author could, again, be a partner, could be us, could be a customer. But this marketplace, we believe, is important for us in the future. So as you can see, we do not just want to deliver a low-code platform. We would like to deliver ready-to-go apps, integration apps and mobile apps, which is sort of 90% ready, and you can tune them. The apps are focusing on specific process areas where we excel, whether that should be field service or manufacturing or logistics, etc. But I think Łukasz maybe could mention that a bit further in his chaotic presentation, which I very much look forward to. And of course, we are continuing to develop our competency in the new cloud ERPs to prepare you for the cloud We are launching apps built on Infor M3 Cloud as well as IFS Cloud. We would love to see our partners contributing here as well with even more apps. Right now, we've developed 57 apps for IFS Cloud, and we've started the journey on Infor M3 Cloud apps. And we will expand with more ERPs here, trying to open up. Probably we really do want you not to be locked in by the vendor. That is one of our purposes. We want to keep you free, independent. We're also launching a number of evergreen services. So we have evergreen care. We keep our own systems up and running evergreen for those customers that have chosen to be on cloud. We are introducing an upgrade factory. Some of you may be on an old version of Flow, and our account management team will contact you and ask you, would you like to go to an upgraded version? And we could offer that that as a service. It means that you can coexist with maybe your old Flow 6 environment on-prem, and in parallel, you could have a Flow 6 cloud environment up and running. So you could sort of do that. You could actually coexist for a while, which is nice. You don't have to expose the business to any risk. We will also launch an IFS Cloud upgrade factory, because we can see that IFS is moving to evergreen quite fast for some of our customers. And for the IFS customers that do not want to rush onto new versions, we will offer a sunset service. Sunset meaning that we will take over the maintenance. When IFS sort of turn off the maintenance, we can turn it on and extend the maintenance services for a number of years in order for you to be on the cloud journey at your own convenience and not to be pushed. So how can we handle so many initiatives? We are 175 people in 10 countries. How can we do it? Well, I think the answer is that we are stronger than ever. Our turnover was 207 million SEK. I think you more or less can divide that by 20 million dollars. We show a moderate EBIT, but I think you guys can understand why. We don't activate or capitalize our R&D development. So there are some large investments. I'm kind of hinting now towards Flow Connect. And I think you would appreciate that we do that. The company is here for a long time. We're not going away. We are not owned by a PE or a VC company. We're here for the long run to support you. In terms of the license revenue, yes, we've made significant growth, which is good. We have a recurring revenue on our product at $642,000 in December last year, and the growth just continue. More of this, less this investment goes directly into R&D development. And finally, of course, the number of users on our product keeps on expanding. And right now we have approximately 150,000 full users on the product, which is also a sign of strength. So I think that is my presentation. The future of ERP, our observations, and how we position ourselves. Over to you, Jenny. I think Jenny first and then Paul, I think.
Yeah, I will just be the person in between. First of all, thank you very much, Johan. Do you guys have any questions for Johan? Please write them in the Q&A. I was told that the chat function is unavailable. So the Q&A, use the Q&A for questions. And I don't see anyone there now. So please go to Mentimeter, because we have a few questions prepared by Johan connected to his presentation that we really would like to hear your feedback on. So let's go to let's go back to Mentimeter. I will share my screen properly this time. So we're still on the what country are you joining us from? I will go ahead to Johan's first question. I thought I would. Nothing is happening. No. So, does your company plan to migrate your ERP system to cloud?
Maybe I can comment on that, Jenny, when it stops, I think.
Yeah, sure. In the meantime, I will look at, we have 2 Q&A.
Yeah.
Yes, 11. Okay. Joy Dinesen, thank you.
Yeah. We believe that the early adopters will be migrating to cloud environment. That's approximately 18% or something in the next 3 years, and then the early majority will come. So we don't see a tremendous rush. Again, having said that, it depends on which ERP system that you use. Some of the vendors are ahead, then they're already in the early majority, whereas some others are. So it all depends on the ERP systems. But in general, this makes sense, I think. Yeah, external factors are preventing us. That's also interesting. Again, business comes first. I think IT is just a tool, let me tell you, people. But an important one.
I think we can move on to the next question. We haven't had any more answers for us.
Yeah.
It's really slow.
Yeah. Är det pil höger kanske?
Yeah, yes, I
The
wish
ner.
I am.
Stop sharing and change like that, maybe.
Yeah, let me try that if that is the thing holding us back. No, okay. What are the biggest risks that you anticipate in the future of ERP systems? Feel free to share your thoughts. So this is an open-ended question.
Yeah. No, I think you have to be cautious by being locked in by the vendor, basically. So in order to avoid being locked in by the vendor, I think it's important, first of all, to always leave. Yeah, of course. Sorry, I'm not supposed to. That's my question. Sorry. We should have practiced this.
This is your question, but you can answer your own question, of course.
Darn. Okay, but now this is called bias. Now I put bias on the people.
I did write your name before the question, but it's like
this is you did.
Questions to you guys.
So I'll take it back. Okay. Now I did a rollback there. Yeah, rollback. Look at that. Integrations with OData, hard to do proper rollbacks. I totally agree. Maybe that's a way to get the business logic into the cloud, maybe as well. Lacks of flexibility and mobility. Yeah. Locked in by the vendor. Yeah, that's my word. Sorry for putting bias on you guys. The need of modifications. Lacks flexibility, certainty in the technology. Yeah.
Are you surprised by any comments you want? Is it something? Do you think?
No. But I think maybe as you move into the cloud, it would be pretty good to have a risk register, meaning to write down your fears and also have mitigation actions. So maybe one of those would be, now I'm just thinking on the top of my head, to have an option, even if you decide to be on a SaaS solution, that it's actually hosted in the cloud by the vendor, to have a fallback, to have the right to go to another hosting option. That's pretty good. Also, So be sure that you're not totally locked in by the vendor. To have a way to get the data out in a structured format if you decide to take a different path. So I think a risk register here is pretty good, but everything here, yes, that answer. Does anyone have access to Novacura with an ERP in the cloud? Yes, we have multiple. I think Paul can mention that. We have both Infor M3 and IFS customers in the cloud. So I think Paul could mention a few of those. But it's also, I think you need to think of a pace in the future. So somehow it's dictated by the vendors. They will have a pace. Maybe they will release new function every 6 months, and then you have 6 months to implement them. So then you have to set up a procedure or process to analyze the change to see how it affects your solution. You probably also need to keep control of the API changes, because we could see that the cloud API is kind of moving dramatically. This is also related to the maturity of the ERP vendor. Some of the vendors that have been around in the cloud for a long time, presumably the cloud APIs are sort of more stable, whereas the newbies are making lots of changes. And that is taking a toll on the early adopters. If you can imagine that you are a new customer working on, you have your ERP system in the cloud, you're working on integrations, presumably, and then there are changes in the cloud APIs that really hits you in the middle of your implementation and go live. So that's then it's probably a wiser thing to take a snapshot in that case and work not in the cloud, like work on something that is standing still, presumably. I'm just thinking out loud now. Yeah, but there are benefits as well. We shouldn't just talk. There are benefits as well. Of course, you get new functionality automatically. You get a lot of security. Hopefully, you get a good performance. Again, it depends on the maturity of the ERP vendor. Most likely, they will go through the same struggles. I mean, I was a project manager at IFS back in 96, 97, 98, when we did the conversion from text-based to graphical user interface. So of course we migrated the entire suite over to IFS applications. It was called 98 or something. And the first thing that hit us was performance. So then we had to run a Yoshimura project or something. So most likely this will happen as well. So after the cloud version is ready, then there will be performance issues. Could very well happen, because that comes like a second wave, sort of. So there are benefits as well.
We will move on to the next question now. I think we have two more that are from you, Johan.
I will not answer now. I will try to.
In which areas does your company might need help when migrating ERP to cloud?
But don't you have an answer? I don't need any help. I'll do it myself. I have a big IT department. Or does that exist? That answer?
It's your question. I guess that would be unable to answer then.
Yeah, take that one. If you don't need any help,
one.
say
if
unable.
You don't need any help, take unable to answer.
Because for sure there we have customers that have a really skilled IT department, and they do just fine on their own, which is perfectly fine. Maybe some of the customers that answered we are already in the cloud actually use Novacura Flow in the cloud on a cloud system. That's interesting. That might be the case. Among the equipment that our thinking is that we could act as a tool provider and just give you flow, like no questions, nothing else. We could provide an upgrade factory. Together with partners, we can do more. Of course, if it's on Infor M3, IBM Maxim or SAP, on IFS, we can do lots more since we have a service division there as well. So then we are thinking of launching evergreen services. That seems to be the right time to launch those kind of services. Jaha.
Okay. We have two more questions in connection to Johan's presentation, and then I will hand over to Paul Phillips. So this is one of the last two. If your company uses IFS applications, where is your company on a journey to IFS Cloud?
Now probably unable to answer is true.
Yeah.
So now I'm kind of expecting this perfect shape where we have the early adopters, the early majority, the laggers, sort of. But again, maybe the green staple or the yellow one really represent that there are other things that the companies are struggling with, other things. There's so much turbulence. Right now, some industries are confronting a recession, I think. But if you look at the Swedish-Norway perspective, maybe this is in all of the world, the interest rates are going up, the building industry is coming down. So it has tremendous impact on the economy is cooling down. So everyone has to transform right now. Maybe this is the chaotic thing that Łukasz will talk about later. It's going to be super interesting. I look forward for the chaotic.
Exactly. Chaos,
yes.
not chaos. I was like,
chaos. Okay, thanks, Jenny. Yeah.
No, but maybe he will talk about chaos as well. I don't know. Lucas is a funny guy. He will have surprises. I will I promise you.
Yes. We're implementing it. Look, we have 3 guys that are implementing the IFS Cloud. Wonder if that's on-prem or if it is on IFS Managed Cloud. Hopefully it is that you didn't. It might be a good idea to do the implementation not in the IFS Managed Cloud. During the implementation, it's much better to be elsewhere. I think that's a word of advice at this moment. Okay, move on, please.
Okay, so this is the last question from Johan. If your company plans to use IFS Cloud, which setup are you considering?
No.
And for you guys that aren't using IFS, that have other ERP system, we will talk more about that later on. I know that Paul has some prepared in his presentation.
Jaha. Well, I wonder what time it is in Australia. Maybe you could say that in the chat. It should be quite. It's not so bad. It's 9 hours. So probably in the afternoon, 5, 6 something p.m. presumably. America is worse, I think. Then it's like early birds.
Yeah, and also depending on where in the US.
Yeah. If you're on Pacific, then I guess it's a bit challenging. Maybe you haven't even gone to bed then. Oh.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate your feedback. It's important for us. So I think you seem done to be answering. Yeah. Again, thank you so much, Johan, for an interesting presentation.
And thank you, Jenny.